What is going on, my friends? Week 11 of the college football season. We are cruising right along. Auburn coming off the loss to Texas A&M 20-3. We're going to break that thing down as we get ready for their matchup at Jordan-Hare Stadium against Mississippi State. We're going head-to-head with Cole Cubelic. Let's go.
Oh, let's go now. Oh, oh, now, now. Oh, let's go now. Oh, can't stop us. Oh, let's go now.
All right, so Auburn falling on the road at Texas A&M. The final score 20-3. The only score put up by the kicker, Anders Carlson, a 3-point field goal there in the first quarter. The worst offensive output for this Auburn football team since 2014. I believe that was the 2014 Iron Bowl. So with that being said, obviously not, I guess, what Auburn had hoped for coming off a big week and a big October, and you have a Bo Nix that was showing a lot of improvement, an offense that was showing a lot of improvement. We were seeing some sparks, some firepower, some confidence, and that confidence seemed to take a major step backwards against Texas A&M. In your mind, what was the ultimate dagger? What was it that kept them from getting that momentum and that spark, especially, Coach Harsin talked about that. We just could not get anything going. What was it that was just holding them back?
I think consistently just being able to run the football. It wasn't there. And we mentioned last week that since Georgia, this would be the next best defensive line that Auburn had faced.
Yep.
And there are multiple NFL players up front for that defense. I thought Coach Elko did a nice job designing some pressure packages and running some stunts up front that really confused some of the blocking angles for that Auburn offensive line and other blockers up front that Auburn had. There were some opportunities down the field. I'm not totally down on the plan because I saw tight end up the seam a few times that wasn't recognized. We saw a couple of deep shots that couldn't be connected with. Looked like they were open, looked like the possibility was there. Just couldn't make that happen, but you want to try to control the game. And I think Jimbo Fisher was happy with the style game that he got. I think he sat back and said, we don't have to turn this into a track meet. We think we have the better rushing attack. We think we have the better defensive line. So if it goes into this kind of game, into the late in the third, early fourth quarter, we're cool with that. But everything you said about the offense is accurate, but you were still in the game. And I mean, this was a close game at the half, close game through most of the third quarter, and then obviously a big turnover sort of swayed everything for Texas A&M. Not only do you give them the ball back, but they take it in and score, and then things sort of feel like they might have been out of reach because you hadn't seen the offense really move the football. There were yards left on the field, and you were competitive against a really good team at their place for the majority of the game. Mistakes cost you big. So I thought the effort was still there. I thought the execution was not terrible early on up front from a blocking perspective. They just played better individuals. And back when I said a week or two ago that I wasn't sure Auburn had the horses to be able to knock off A&M and Alabama, some of this was why. Was if you got into a close game, a pivotal game with an opponent that was more talented than you and had better players than you, that was going to be trouble late in the game. So I thought Auburn's defense got a little bit gassed late in this game, and I thought that was problematic. I thought Derek Mason had a pretty good plan, but that offensive line began to lean, and then obviously you saw Spiller able to get going a little bit late, and you could go say the same thing about A&M. I think they had 3 drops that would have been first downs, 5 drops overall, so they didn't really play a clean game, but Auburn forced them into a little bit of that. It was a solid effort, just needed more execution in key spots and needed to limit some of the mistakes in key spots as well.
Yeah, and I think when you flip on the tape, the score not indicative, as you said, of the effort. Because when you look at the final score, you think 20-3. Well, what the heck happened? Like, did Auburn just not show up? I don't think that's the case at all. Obviously, Bo Nix struggled. 20 of 41 passes. He ended up throwing the football 41 times. Wasn't able to get the ground game going. There was inconsistencies there. Some of the drop passes. His percentage was really low. I think he was at 50% completion of his passes, and really just some glaring issues there, the inconsistencies, and I think that's hard to swallow after you think about what they did in October and coming off the win over Ole Miss and just some of the confidence and the swagger that this team was having, and then it's just like, boop, you burst the bubble. So I think that's part of the reason that we analyze this game the way that we do. Now, when you look at this Mississippi State football team that comes in against the air raid, they put up 486 yards last week. They were successful against Arkansas in doing so, picked up 28 first downs. What is it that Auburn needs to do really well to defend this air raid to get back in the win column?
I think the first thing you have to do is try to make Will Rogers uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And Lauren, he has not looked uncomfortable in quite some time. I had his last 2 games. I was on the sideline watching it. He goes over 400 yards in both those games and looked exceptional. 36 of 39 2 weeks ago against Kentucky, that's hard to do in practice against air. And he had another strong performance, really turned it on in the second half against Arkansas. You have to get to him. You have to make him move. You have to push him out of the pocket. You have to remove some passing windows, because if you don't, he is so patient. He has such a calm over him. He looks so confident in the pocket. He'll pick you apart. And then when you do decide to pick and choose your spots to add pressure, he usually has an idea where it's coming from. And that's why he just bludgeoned Kentucky out of the backfield. And that's why he was able to get some second and third level shots against Arkansas, because he knew at some point in time Barry Odom was going to have to bring pressure. And it's like he just sits there and waits for it. And he knows it's coming. And then he hits you over the top, or he finds where you're not, and they're able to find a way to get yards. So Mike Leach has gotten a little more balance in his play calling the last 2 weeks. That's something that you at least have to respect. And I think Auburn's lighter defensive line could be good against this offensive line and against this offense, period. I thought Derek Hall played a great game last week. They're going to need him big in this game, because you can't get around those tackles and force Rodgers to step up and maybe move a little bit. And he'll take sacks. He's shown it. He's shown it the last 2 weeks. He'll sit in the pocket long enough where things don't open up. He knows pressure's coming. He'll just eat it and take a sack. So the one thing that has to happen, Auburn consistently has to find a way to get to Will Rogers.
And I think the things that sing to me about Will Rogers is maturity, confidence, and toughness. Those are the 3 things that this defense is going to have to defend, especially, as you said, if he can hit some of those explosive plays, just move the football, chew clock, and to be able to obviously score. So with that being said, when we get to the prediction, this is a tough one for me. What direction to go, because I do think that you come off a rather deflating game against Texas A&M. All hope is not certainly lost, but what Auburn football team are you going to get back in Jordan-Hare Stadium? Are you going to get back your October football team, the confidence and some of the things that they were doing really well, or is it going to be a little bit of a deflation when Mike Leach dials up some things, comes in and takes care of business? So with that being said, I think that Auburn does return home with a bit of a different mindset. They kind of hit the reset button. They say, okay, we've got to get this done. I think they will come out and play some physical football and show us some better things on offense. And then defensively, defensively, they had a tremendous performance against Texas A&M. And, a lot of credit goes to that defense for the way they performed. It didn't show up in the win column, certainly. I am going to go with Auburn winning this one close.
You have no idea what you're predicting, do you?
31-28.
I just feel like you're trying to drag that along because you had no idea which direction you were going to go.
I was really struggling with it, but I'm going to go 31-28, and don't worry, I'm not doing that just to please the viewers out there, because I know some viewers weren't so kind on your prediction.
That was right?
Last week.
Yeah, they hate me being right. This is not a great matchup. And when we picked the Arkansas game, one thing I sat here next to you and said, pretty good matchup for Auburn. I like where they are based on what Arkansas has and what they're doing right now. Ole Miss, great matchup for Auburn. Numbers on the back end. Obviously didn't need a big physical defensive line to be able to go against that rushing attack. Some of that's similar and applies here, but this offense is just totally different, completely different. This is the other side of the ball that concerns me, because this is a group under Zach Arnett that's going to give you every single look, every single blitz, every single stunt, and they are super aggressive. They want to attack. They want to attack the quarterback, attack the backfield, and all of those things don't play in well to what Auburn does offensively. So I don't believe that Auburn's going to be able to find enough points. Mississippi State's really good at corner. And I think if they need to play man, they'll be able to do it, because Auburn receivers have not shown the capability to separate. There really is no number one receiver for Auburn right now. It's going to have to be a lot of Bo Nix with his legs on the ground. It's going to have to be a lot of misdirection, because one thing State's defense does, they track you back really well from the backside. So if it's screens, if it's bootlegs, whatever it is, misdirection plays, kind of like the LSU plan, Auburn's got to have a lot of it. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think Will Rogers is going to be able to navigate some things and find a couple points here and there. And I don't think Auburn can find the end zone very often against this defense. So I'm going to go 21-10. I think Mississippi State gets the win.
Talking a little trash on the field? Yeah, we get it. Trashing the state with litter? That's terrible. Keep it clean. Keep Alabama beautiful.
guaranteed that I die a legend. Yeah, son God, homie, I'm reverend. Breaks, just protecting my investment. Ask about me, integrity's not in question.